For decades, we've been told that the best way to get protein is through steaks, chicken, eggs, and protein shakes. But what if I told you that some of the most powerful protein sources on Earth are not found where most people usually look, but are growing quietly in gardens, fields, and even in your own backyard? While we're all focused on animal-based protein, nature has been providing incredible plant-based protein sources for thousands of years, foods that supported entire civilizations, fueled hard-working communities, and helped people thrive without relying only on animal products. These are plants that bodybuilders, athletes, scientists, and nutrition experts are taking a closer look at because of their impressive protein content and unique amino acid profiles. Some of them are common foods you may already have in your kitchen, while others are ancient plants most people have never even heard of. And today, we're counting down 20 protein-rich plants that can completely change the way you look at plant-based nutrition, ranked from impressive sources to some of the most surprising protein powerhouses on the planet. So, let's get started. Number 1. Soybeans. Let's start with the one plant that quietly outproduces almost every other protein crop on Earth, and most people have no idea it's doing it. A single cooked cup of soybeans hands you close to 29 grams of protein. Weigh that against a cup of cooked ground beef, and the soybean wins. And it does it while carrying every one of the 9 essential amino acids your body can't make on its own. Here's the part that surprises people. Soybeans aren't some rare or exotic crop. They're one of the most heavily farmed plants on the planet, grown across hundreds of millions of acres in the US, Brazil, and Argentina alone. The scale is almost hard to picture. And this one plant doesn't stop at soybean. Ferment it, press it, curdle it, or simply steam it young, and you get tofu, tempeh, miso, soy sauce, soy milk, and edamame. No other single crop on this list branches into that many finished foods. There's also a quiet environmental case here. Growing a pound of soy protein takes a fraction of the land and water that raising a pound of beef protein requires. Same nutrition, dramatically smaller footprint. And the benefits don't stop at protein. Soybeans also bring a solid dose of iron and calcium to the table, 2 minerals that don't show up together this generously in many plant foods. Soybeans didn't need a marketing campaign to earn their spot at number 1. The numbers did that on their own. Number 2. Chickpeas. Hummus made chickpeas famous, but that's really just one use out of dozens, and it undersells what this legume can actually do nutritionally. A cooked cup gives you roughly 15 grams of protein and about 12 grams of fiber, plus a solid dose of folate, iron, and manganese. The glycemic impact is low too, so the energy release is steady instead of spiking and crashing. What sets chickpeas apart is range. Roast them until crisp for a snack, blend them into a dip, simmer them into a curry, grind them into flour for flatbread, or whip the leftover canning liquid, aquafaba, into something that behaves shockingly like whipped egg white in baking. They also bring a decent amount of calcium and magnesium to the table, 2 minerals that don't always get enough attention next to the protein conversation, but matter just as much for bone and muscle health. Trade routes are actually a big part of how chickpeas spread as far as they did. Merchants carried them across the Mediterranean and into South Asia centuries before refrigeration existed, precisely because dried chickpeas travel and store so well. This is a crop that's been feeding people around the Mediterranean and South Asia for more than 7,000 years, and it's only gotten more useful with time, not less. Number 3. Lentils. Few foods on this list have been in continuous use for as long as the lentil. Archaeologists have pulled them out of sites dating back over 10,000 years, which means humans figured this one out very early and never let go. One cooked cup gives you around 18 grams of protein, alongside close to 15 grams of fiber. That pairing is what makes lentils so satisfying. It's not just the protein, it's the protein plus bulk that keeps hunger away for hours. They're also fast, Red lentils break down into a soft, creamy base in about 15 minutes with zero soaking required, which is more than you can say for most dried legumes. Add in the iron, folate, and manganese, and a bag of lentils that costs next to nothing starts looking a lot more impressive than the price tag suggests. Studies also show that regular lentil consumption is linked to better blood sugar control, improved heart health, and lower cholesterol levels. Civilizations were fed on this humble food for millennia before high protein was ever a marketing phrase. It didn't need the label to prove its value. Number 4. Black beans. Black beans carry a color that actually means something nutritionally. That deep, almost purple-black skin is loaded with anthocyanins, the same antioxidant family found in blueberries. Protein-wise, a cooked cup runs about 15 grams, matched with another 15 grams of fiber. That 1-to-1 ratio is part of why black beans show up so often in dishes meant to keep you full for a long stretch, not just satisfied for 20 minutes. They're also remarkably cheap and shelf-stable. A bag of dried black beans can sit in a pantry for a long time and still cook up into something nutritionally solid, no refrigeration required. That antioxidant content is worth dwelling on for a second. Studies comparing black beans to lighter-colored beans like navy or pinto consistently find the black variety carries noticeably higher antioxidant levels simply because of that dark seed coat. They also show up in a wider range of dishes than people expect. Beyond the obvious burritos and soups, mashed black beans work as a sandwich spread, and blended into a brownie batter, they disappear into the texture while quietly boosting the protein and fiber count. From burritos to soups to, believe it or not, brownies, this bean has quietly worked its way into cuisines across the Americas for thousands of years, and the science backs up why it's stuck around. Number 5. Green peas. Peas get treated like side dishes nobody asked for, but they're actually one of the easiest protein sources to grow yourself, and that's worth pausing on. A cooked cup delivers around 8 to 9 grams of protein, along with fiber, vitamin C, and vitamin K. It's not a huge number on its own, but peas are also nitrogen fixers, meaning the plant improves the soil it grows in while it's feeding you. That combination of nutrition and soil benefit is part of why pea protein isolate has exploded in the supplement world over the last decade. Food companies figured out how to concentrate that protein down into something that rivals whey in muscle-building studies. What most people don't realize is that the whole plant is edible, not just the pea itself. Young pea shoots and tendrils are tender enough to eat raw in a salad and carry their own dose of vitamin C on top of what the mature pod provides. They're also one of the easiest crops for a first-time gardener, since they can go straight into the ground in early spring and climb a simple trellis with almost no fuss. Whether you're eating them whole or drinking them in a shake, peas are doing more work than their reputation suggests. Number 6. Pumpkin seeds. Every fall, millions of pumpkin seeds get scraped out and thrown straight in the trash, right along with the guts. That's a shame, because the seed is arguably more valuable than the flesh around it. An ounce, about a small handful, gives you close to 9 grams of protein. But the real standout here is the mineral profile. Pumpkin seeds are one of the richest food sources of zinc you can find, plus a strong dose of magnesium and iron. Zinc specifically matters for immune function and recovery, and it's a mineral a lot of people run low on without realizing it. Pumpkin seeds also contain a meaningful amount of tryptophan, the same amino acid the body converts into serotonin and eventually melatonin, which is part of why a small handful in the evening is sometimes recommended as a gentle food-based sleep aid. Look for the hull-less or naked-seeded pumpkin varieties if you're growing your own. They produce seeds without the tough outer shell, so you go from harvest to roasting pan without any extra shelling work. Roast them with a little oil and salt, toss them into a salad, or blend them into a green sauce. However you use them, saving the seeds is one of the easiest nutritional upgrades available every autumn. Number 7. Quinoa. Quinoa gets filed under trendy health food, but it earned that spotlight honestly. It's one of the very few plants that actually qualifies as a complete protein, carrying all 9 essential amino acids in meaningful amounts. A cooked cup runs around 8 grams of protein. That's modest compared to legumes, but the amino acid balance is what puts it in a different category from most grains, which are typically short on lysine. It's also naturally gluten-free and cooks in about 15 minutes, similar to rice. One prep note worth knowing: quinoa carries a bitter natural coating called saponin, so a quick rinse before cooking makes a noticeable difference in flavor. Beyond the amino acids, quinoa brings a solid amount of magnesium and manganese, both involved in energy metabolism, along with a low glycemic index that keeps blood sugar steadier than most refined grains. It also comes in white, red, and black varieties. White is the mildest and fluffiest once cooked, while red and black hold their shape better and bring a slightly nuttier bite, useful if you want a grain that doesn't turn mushy in a cold salad. Grown originally in the high-altitude Andes, it's now cultivated worldwide, and its amino acid completeness is exactly why researchers keep circling back to it.
Number 8. Amaranth. Amaranth has one of the more dramatic backstories on this list. The Aztec Empire valued it so highly that it was accepted as a form of tax payment from its people. Nutritionally, it earned that level of importance. A cooked cup provides around 9 grams of protein, and it's unusually rich in lysine, an amino acid that most grains are lacking. That makes amaranth a useful pairing with foods like rice or corn to round out the amino acid picture. It's also naturally gluten-free, and the tiny seeds can be cooked into a porridge, popped like miniature popcorn, or ground into flour. The leaves of the plant are edible too, and they're often overlooked entirely. Cooked like spinach, they add their own small dose of protein along with a good amount of vitamin A. In traditional Mexican cooking, popped amaranth gets mixed with honey to make a simple candy called alegría, a sweet that's basically been around in one form or another as long as the grain itself. The ban didn't work in the long run. Amaranth survived in home gardens and is now recognized as one of the more nutritionally complete plant foods available.
Number 9. Mung beans. Mung beans don't get much attention in Western kitchens, but across South and East Asia, they've been a staple for roughly 4,000 years, and for good reason. Dried, they run around 24% protein by weight, and that protein digests more easily than most legumes, meaning less of the bloating and discomfort beans are typically known for. Sprouted mung beans take things even further. The sprouting process boosts vitamin C content and makes the nutrients even more accessible. And you can grow a batch on your kitchen counter in about 3 to 5 days with nothing more than a jar and some water. They're also a solid source of folate and magnesium, and in traditional Ayurvedic cooking, mung beans have long been considered one of the easiest legumes on digestion, which is part of why they're often the first bean introduced back into the diet after illness. Beyond the whole bean, mung bean starch is also what glass noodles are made from, a translucent noodle used across Chinese and Southeast Asian cooking that most people have eaten without ever realizing where it came from. Whether cooked into a curry or eaten fresh as a crunchy sprout, mung beans deliver a gentler, easier-to-digest way to get real protein into a meal. Number 10. Peanuts. Peanuts are so common that it's easy to stop thinking of them as a serious protein source, but the numbers don't care how familiar something is. An ounce delivers about 7 grams of protein, and 2 tablespoons of natural peanut butter gets you roughly the same. On top of that, peanuts bring heart-healthy monounsaturated fat, vitamin E, folate, and magnesium. Long-term studies have repeatedly found that regular nut consumption, peanuts included, is associated with lower rates of heart disease. Peanuts show up far beyond the sandwich, too. West African stews lean on ground peanuts for richness. Thai and Indonesian sauces use them as a base, and in most of these traditions, peanuts have functioned as a serious protein source for generations, not a garnish.
One note worth flagging: peanuts are among the more common food allergens, so this is one entry on the list that isn't universally accessible the way most of the others are. The catch is in the label. Natural peanut butter, where peanuts are the only ingredient, gives you all of this. Many commercial jars dilute that benefit with added sugar and hydrogenated oil, so it's worth checking what's actually in the jar.
Number 11. Chia seeds. Chia seeds are tiny, but don't let the size fool you. 2 tablespoons pack around 5 grams of protein, 10 grams of fiber, and a serious dose of plant-based omega-3 fat. Their most unusual trait is what happens when they hit liquid. Chia can absorb up to 12 times its own weight in water, turning into a gel almost instantly. That's the entire basis for chia pudding, and it's also why the seeds are so good at creating slow, sustained energy instead of a quick spike. Historically, Aztec and Mayan runners and warriors reportedly carried chia on long journeys, specifically for that steady fuel effect, a use case modern endurance research has actually gone back and validated. Ounce for ounce, chia also carries more calcium than a glass of milk, which is a detail that rarely comes up next to the more famous omega-3 and fiber numbers, but matters just as much for anyone cutting back on dairy. They double as a genuinely useful egg replacement in baking, too. 1 tablespoon of chia mixed with 3 tablespoons of water and left to sit for a few minutes forms a gel that binds muffins, pancakes, and cookies almost as well as the real thing. Stir them into yogurt, use them as an egg replacement in baking, or just let a spoonful sit in water overnight. Small effort, real payoff.
Number 12. Fava beans. Fava beans go back further than most people realize. They were feeding laborers and soldiers in the ancient Mediterranean and Middle East as far back as the Bronze Age. A cooked cup provides around 13 grams of protein, along with fiber, folate, and manganese. They also contain L-dopa, a natural precursor your body uses to produce dopamine, which is an unusual compound to find in a bean. There is one important caution here. People with a genetic condition called G6PD deficiency, which is more common in some Mediterranean and Middle Eastern populations, need to avoid fava beans, as they can trigger a serious reaction. For most people, though, favas are completely safe. In the garden, fava beans are a cool season crop, which means they can go into the ground when most of the rest of the vegetable patch is still dormant. Like most legumes on this list, they also fix nitrogen in the soil, leaving it richer for whatever gets planted next. Young, fresh fava beans can even be eaten raw or barely cooked, shelled straight from the pod, which is a completely different experience from the dried, simmered version most people are familiar with. Simmered into stews or turned into the classic Middle Eastern dish, fool madams, fava beans have quietly powered breakfasts and hard labor alike for thousands of years.
Number 13. Moringa leaves. Moringa is one of those plants that sounds too good to be true until you actually check the numbers, and then it somehow holds up. Dried moringa leaf powder contains around 27 grams of protein per 100 grams, and it's a genuinely complete protein. Alongside that, it packs more calcium than milk, more vitamin C than oranges, more potassium than bananas, and more iron than spinach, gram for gram. Moringa is used in real malnutrition intervention programs across parts of Africa and South Asia, precisely because so much nutrition is packed into so little plant material. Research on moringa also points to measurable anti-inflammatory and antioxidant effects. And unlike a lot of superfood claims, this one has a reasonable body of published studies behind it rather than just tradition. It isn't only the leaves that are useful either. The young seed pods, sometimes called drumsticks, are cooked and eaten as a vegetable across South Asia, giving this one tree yet another edible part beyond just the leaves. The tree itself grows fast, tolerates poor soil, and can be harvested repeatedly through a season, which is part of why it's held on to its reputation as one of the most efficient food sources a small plot of land can produce. Number 14. Brussels sprouts. Brussels sprouts don't have a huge protein number in isolation, but nutrition isn't only about raw grams, it's also about what you're paying in calories to get there. A cup delivers around 4 grams of protein for just 56 calories, which actually beats the protein-to-calorie ratio of many cuts of beef. You're getting real protein without the calorie load that usually comes attached to it. They're also rich in vitamin C, fiber, and glucosinolates, compounds tied to the same anti-inflammatory family found in broccoli and kale. Vitamin K is another standout here, and it plays a direct role in how the body manages blood clotting and bone metabolism, functions that are easy to overlook next to flashier nutrients like protein or vitamin C. The most common mistake with Brussels sprouts is overcooking them into mush, which is largely responsible for their bad reputation. Roasted hot and fast until the outer leaves crisp up, they taste like a completely different vegetable. A single plant can produce well over 100 sprouts in a season, and they actually grow best in cool fall weather when most of the garden has already finished for the year. Number 15. Broccoli. Broccoli's reputation as a health food undersells it a little. Per calorie, it actually beats most cuts of beef on protein density. A cup of chopped broccoli gives you about 3 grams of protein for only 31 calories. Beyond the protein, broccoli contains sulforaphane, a compound researchers have studied for its role in reducing oxidative stress and supporting faster recovery after exercise. It's also a strong source of vitamin C and vitamin K, and it's one of the easier vegetables to fit into almost any meal, raw, roasted, steamed, or blended into a soup. Broccoli also carries a genuinely good amount of calcium for a vegetable, which is worth noting for anyone cutting back on dairy and looking for plant-based sources to fill that gap. It's not flashy, but broccoli has quietly earned its place in the diets of serious athletes for exactly the reasons above. Sustained, low-calorie nutrition that adds up over time.
Number 16. Kale. Kale had its viral moments several years back, and a lot of people wrote it off once the trend faded. That's a mistake because the nutrition never changed. A cooked cup delivers roughly 4 to 5 grams of protein, and kale contains small amounts of all 9 essential amino acids, alongside a strong dose of calcium, iron, and vitamin K, nutrients that support bone health and oxygen transport together. From a growing standpoint, kale is hard to beat. A single plant can be harvested continuously for months since you pick the outer leaves while the center keeps producing new ones. It also tolerates frost well, and a light cold snap actually makes the leaves taste sweeter. It's also unusually rich in vitamin A, largely from the beta-carotene that gives darker leafy greens their color, a nutrient tied to eye health and immune function. There's more than one variety worth knowing, too. Curly kale is the most common, but lacinato, sometimes called dinosaur kale, has a slightly milder, more tender leaf that a lot of people prefer raw in salads or blended into a smoothie.
Number 17. Edamame. If you've ever ordered a bowl of these at a Japanese restaurant, you were basically eating young soybeans, harvested green before they had the chance to fully mature and harden. That early harvest works in their favor. A cup of cooked edamame delivers around 17 grams of protein, and because it's still soy underneath, it carries the full set of essential amino acids. They're also loaded with folate, vitamin K, and fiber, and they take about 5 minutes from freezer bag to plate. Steam them, salt them, done. Concerns about soy and hormones have circulated online for years, but large reviews of the actual clinical data haven't backed that fear up. Moderate soy intake is consistently linked to better, not worse, cardiovascular numbers. Edamame also carries the same isoflavones found in mature soybeans, plant compounds researchers have studied for their role in supporting bone density and heart health over the long term. And unlike many high-protein foods, it comes with almost no downside on the fat or sodium front, unless you're the one adding the salt yourself. If you're growing your own, the pods can be harvested straight from the plant in late summer, and the whole plant, roots included, actually leaves the soil richer in nitrogen than it found it, a small bonus for whatever you plant there next season. Edamame is proof that you don't need a complicated recipe to get a serious dose of protein. Sometimes it's just a pod and a pinch of salt. Number 18. Hemp seeds. Hemp seeds carry some baggage because of their cousin plant, but nutritionally they have nothing to do with that reputation. No psychoactive compounds, just a genuinely impressive amino acid profile. 3 tablespoons deliver about 10 grams of complete protein, meaning all 9 essential amino acids are present. On top of that, hemp seeds offer an omega-3 to omega-6 ratio that researchers consider close to ideal for supporting heart health. The proteins in hemp, mainly edestin and albumin, are also easy for the body to digest and absorb, which isn't true of every plant protein source. Hemp seeds are also one of the better plant sources of magnesium, a mineral tied to muscle function, nerve signaling, and sleep quality, and one that a large share of adults don't get enough of from food alone. The plant itself is worth mentioning too. Hemp grows fast, needs relatively little water, and actually improves the soil it's grown in, which is part of why it's increasingly used as a rotational crop between other plantings. Best of all, there's zero prep required. Sprinkle them on yogurt, stir them into oatmeal, blend them into a smoothie. It's one of the lowest effort protein upgrades on this entire list. Number 19. Spinach. A cooked cup of spinach provides around 5 to 6 grams of protein, which is respectable for a leafy green. But the more interesting story is what else it's doing at the same time. Spinach is naturally high in dietary nitrates, the same compound family responsible for the popularity of beet juice in endurance sports. Nitrates help widen blood vessels, which can improve blood flow and oxygen delivery to working muscles during exercise. It also brings iron, folate, and vitamin K to the table, all nutrients tied to energy production and recovery. Spinach also carries a good amount of magnesium and manganese, 2 minerals involved in dozens of enzymatic processes throughout the body, from energy production to bone formation. One practical note: spinach contains oxalates, compounds that can slightly limit how much of its iron and calcium the body actually absorbs. Cooking it and pairing it with a source of vitamin C helps offset that and improves absorption. Cooking actually helps here too. Heat reduces spinach's volume dramatically, meaning you can fit a lot more of it and its nutrients into a single serving than you'd ever manage eating it raw in a salad.
Number 20. Asparagus. Asparagus rewards patience more than any other plant on this list. It contains a modest amount of protein, around 3 to 4 grams per cooked cup, but its real value is long-term. Plant a crown once, and it can keep producing edible spears every single spring for up to 20 years. Almost nothing else in a vegetable garden offers that kind of return on a single planting. Asparagus also contains glutathione, a compound involved in the body's natural detoxification processes, along with folate and vitamin K. It's also a solid source of vitamin A, and because it's naturally very low in calories, it's one of those vegetables that gives you a meaningful nutrient return without adding much to your overall intake for the day. In the kitchen, it's hard to overcomplicate. A quick roast or grill with olive oil and a little salt is usually all it needs, and the spears cook fast enough that overcooking them into a limp gray mess is the only real mistake to avoid. One tip worth knowing: don't harvest any spears until the plant has had time to fully mature. Letting the ferns grow out early on builds the root system, and that patience pays off with stronger, more productive harvests once it's established. If this changed how you look at your next meal, hit that like button, drop a comment on which one surprised you most, and subscribe so you don't miss what we're growing next.